CSS examination. There are 12 papers in CSS exam and one paper which we call English plays a vital role in CSS exam. So, boys and girls, or in other words, I am of the opinion, my students, today I want to communicate how to write effective writing or how to write effective essay. Is that clear? As a layman, I would like to tell you, essay has, that are three things: beginning, middle, and end. These three things, that are knit together. And how you can knit together, that are these three things. For this, we need three factors. Three factors are very important for writing effective. First come the unity. Okay? Then come number second, coherence or handled together organically. And the third one is support. So these are the three things which requires. Now let us analyze unity first. Unity first. Now for unity we need three things. And what are the three things? Do all the details in the essay, support and build the main thesis. Do you think that your detail tied to support, that of the main thesis? Number two, then comes do all the illustration relate to the main point. Is that clear? And add to the general effectiveness of the main thesis or main essay. Now the third thing, which is also very important, that is, have irrelevant ideas deleted. So these are the three things which are one of the most essential factor of this thing. Okay. Now comes now we try to proceed further. Is that clear? Let us analyze the coherence. So my dear students, try to be careful. When we try to communicate coherence, it means three things. Does the essay show a sense of organization? Is that clear? Number two, is the material presented logically? Number three, does the essay include transitional words or phrases that allow the reader to move easily from one idea to the next? So transitional words plays a significant role. I would like to discuss in detail about the use of transitional word, because without transitional word you cannot improve. So later on we will try to discuss the transitional of the word. Okay, because it moves your idea. You can move freely from one idea to other idea with the help of transitional words. Now in the end comes of the sport. And what is sport? does the essay use the details that make it interesting and vivid and clear and effective? So these are the things which are very important factor of that of these kind of things. And now comes another thing. Some students try to complain when they try to write down out of this topic. They try to complain out of this essay, or they are of the opinion that the essay which they are trying to communicate they do not like and things like that. You should try to avoid using a complaining and apologetic tone. So you must be very careful that of this kind of thing. And before I try to explain that of a transitional that of a word, I would like to tell you the unity. The unity, okay? Because unity in writing plays a significant role. It may be possible that while you are trying to write down essay, you should take it very seriously, that you should not try to deviate from the main topic, main thesis. So I would like to discuss that of the unity. Unity is an essential quality. Is that clear? In a well-written essay. In this context, I am of the opinion that unity plays a significant role. The principle of unity requires that every element in a piece of writing, whether a paragraph or an essay, be related to the main idea. Is that clear? Sometimes that stay, deviate from the subject, even though they might be related to it, provide additional information, but they can weaken an otherwise strong piece of writing. So, in this context, I would like to communicate to you that of the lack of unity, where you try to create a lack of unity. I would like to read, and the 2 or 3 lines are trying to deviate, trying to stay from the main topic. So I would like to read first. That of a para, you will try to definitely understand. Actually, my main aim is that if you try to deviate from that of the unity, then comes that a lot of problem. Now I am trying to communicate how you try to create a problem while communicating unity. When I was growing up, now it's a para, I would like to communicate to you. When I was growing up, one of the places I enjoyed most was the cherry trees in the backyard, full stop. Behind the yard I was an alley, and then more houses. Every summer when the cherries began to ripen, sweet, sun-warm cherries. Now I try to deviate from that of the topic. And what is that? Two lines try to mark the beauty of that of the unity. And what is that? My mother always worried about my falling out of the tree, but I never did. So this is no doubt it's the most important thing, but we are trying to deviate from that of the topic. But I had some competition for the cherries, flocks of birds, and enjoyed them as much as I did, and would perch all over the tree, devouring the fruit whenever I wasn't there. I used to wonder why the grown-ups never are any of the cherries. Now again I try to deviate from that other topic. What is that? My father loved all kinds of fruit, But actually, comma, when the bird and I had finished, comma, there weren't many left. Now, from two, that of a points, in two lines, I try to deviate from, that of the main topic. So, we should try to avoid, that of a, avoiding, and we should try to avoid, that of a using this kind of language. Now, I have discussed you about, that of transitional word. Transitional word in CS plus examination, when you are trying to communicate 3000 words essay, you should try to follow, that of these rules and regulations. And I am of the opinion, so far as I know, this is one of the most essential things, okay, that is transitions. And now, what is transition? I tell you. Transition are words and phrases that are used to signal the relationship among ideas in an essay and to join the various parts of an essay together. Is that clear? Writers use transition to relate ideas within sentences. Is that clear? Between sentences and between paragraphs. Okay? Perhaps the most common type of transition is the so-called transitional expression. Following is, that of a list I would like to give you. Now I would like to communicate, that of the list, which will help you to find out, to write down an effective and good essay. And I will try to discuss, that of a list, which will definitely try to create a lot of, that of a, help your, that of writing a 3000 essay. Now I am trying to discuss, that of a transitional, that of the element. Now the first one is concession, or it means acknowledgement. So you should try to use, that of a, these kind of words. To be sure, granted, of course, it is due to tell the truth, certainly, with the exception of although this may be true, even though. Naturally. Now there is a contrast, You, for instance, in essay you want to communicate a contrast. For contrast, you should try to use, these words. Okay? But, however, in contrast, on the contrary, on the other hand, yet, nevertheless, after all, in spite of. So these are the words which definitely try to improve your good essay. Now place, elsewhere, here, above, below, further on, and there beyond, nearly, opposite to, around. So these are the words which definitely try to improve your, that of a writing. Now there is another thing, restatement. If you want to communicate, that of in your essay writing, restatement, then you should try to use, that of these kind of words. That is, as I have said, in other words, comma, in simple manner, or term, or thing like that. Now comes, that of sequence. In conclusion, is that clear? To conclude, to summarize, in brief, in short. Now there is a timing. You want to communicate, that of some kind of timing. Afterward, later, earlier. Is that clear? Subsequently, at the same time, simultaneously, immediately, this time, until now, before, meanwhile, shortly, soon, etc., etc., and etc. Is that clear? Now, I would like to pinpoint one of the most essential phenomena over here. And what is that? What is that? Your conclusion. How you try to conclude, that of your essay. This is one of the most essential phenomena. I have seen that mostly the student of CSS exam, they try to avoid, out of it, this conclusion. And I would like to quote, Lucius Carroll. I would like to communicate, that of it, the writer who is an expert in the field of, that of writing. He is Lucius Carroll. He once gave very good advice. He said, when you come to the end stop, the successful writer, what should be how you should try to be a successful writer, like the wise guest, okay? Know that he must not prolong his stay. When you try to stay any year, you become a guest. If you try to prolong over there, then definitely you will be in problem. So Lucius Carroll is of the opinion, like the wise guest, he knows that he must not prolong his stay. When he comes to the end of his essay, he must draw his command together. Is that clear? In a strong, clear, concluding and concluding paragraph. So, in this context, I would like to give you from literature. I would like to give you example from literature. If you try to study that of Hamlet, King Lear, okay, and that of Othello. The piece of literature of that of Shakespeare is superb. But if you try to analyze Hamlet particularly, if you try to analyze Macbeth particularly, if you try to analyze Othello, what happened is that what is the drawback of that of critic point out, what is the drawback of that of Shakespeare? The drawback of Shakespeare is that he is very much that of fast. He is very much quick in making end, and that's why he tried to destroy that of the beauty of his writing. So what happened is that when we are trying to give that of a conclusion, we should be very careful, very that of a very that of a vivid. In the end, I am of the opinion that vocab also plays a vital role. Words are like instrument. That was philosophy of instrument. When you want to adjust an instrument in some other, for instance, if you have an instrument for mobile and you cannot that of fix this instrument with in that of your motorbike. So words are very important. So you should try to use that of word where they are fitted. For that you need lot of practice. And from the beginning I pointed out that you should be very careful. That of while using that of the words. You should know the command over jugglery of words. Sometimes the same word are used as a connotative meaning. Sometimes the same word is used as a denotative meaning. So if you try to communicate these kind of things, then definitely you can write down a good essay. In the end, I am of the opinion that you should try to subscribe, or if you want to need any kind of comment and if you want to say something, you can subscribe. Okay, so that's the end.